what the learning is here is we have more in common than we think. So you have to break it down and you have to ask questions and seek truly to understand.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ashley and I'm smiling very big right now because this is about to be an epic conversation. I cannot wait to introduce my guest today. He is an executive leader, culture shifter, fitness enthusiast, proud Canadian, and so much more. But his impact goes far beyond any title or achievement. He's somebody who is just an awesome human and sees the best in and brings the best out of people and simply just makes the world better. So with that, I'm honored to welcome to the show the Chief Eternal Optimist himself, my friend Kevin Rutherford.
What a pleasure, first of all, to be here. And secondly, can you just hang out with me and just introduce me to anybody? Because that was just very humbling and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Anytime. I would love that. It would be an honor. But yeah, super excited for this. And for context, you and I first met on a very cold Pittsburgh run.
I remember. It was a great time.
You were CEO of Noon Hydration. Shout out to Noon. We love Noon. And I was at the time with the amazing team at P3R. Fast forward almost 6 years later, connected still and having meaningful conversations all the more.
100%. And, you know, there's a lesson here to take away as well as the team is the brand is the team. And that was the case of living that mission for P3R. The same thing was Noon. We were about, more movement.
For sure. Those were some awesome memories bringing our teams together. Always, we'll continue to cheer them on and say a fan. But this podcast is all about sharing our experiences, pursuing the process, and spreading encouragement along the way because life doesn't always go as we plan. And that's how we build endurance to keep going. And you and I both believe that our stories have the power to connect and inspire us. So I have an opening question for you.
Okay.
You wanted to be a professional hockey player growing up. I wanted to be a professional basketball player growing up. That didn't happen for either of us. But sometimes what we think is the end of our story is only the beginning. So my question is, how does one go from amateur hockey player to CEO?
Ooh, I like it. That was a good one. And I did want to be a hockey player. I think I still do, but I'm like, there's a little Dumb and Dumber in me. So you're telling me there's a chance. But I really don't think there's a chance, all kidding aside. Truthfully, I don't think I ever saw myself as becoming a CEO. When I was younger, definitely, some sort of leadership role in life, but CEO, yeah, that kind of surprised me. I would say this, it really, as I look at the journey of my life and I look backwards and I go, what is the connective tissue that connects all of those dots? Steve Jobs said in his commencement speech at Stanford, you can only connect the dots in life by looking backwards. And when I do that, the connective tissue all the way back to high school is going to be being on teams and helping others. It really, if I was to distill it down to one thing, it's that. Because when you're serving others, helping others, it goes and points right back at you. And I think that's what kind of propelled me forward. And I don't know, I feel really fortunate because I truly feel like somebody's always had my back. Like somebody always has my back, even in hockey. Truthfully, I was not very tough. So when a fight was about to break out, my teammates would come in because some of them really like to fight, which I'm not condoning, just to be clear, but they would come in and then boom, take them out. And then I'm still standing there going, okay, thanks. But all kidding aside, although that is true, what happened is I think it's just, when you're serving others, others want to serve you right back. And I think that's how you go from wanting to be a hockey player to today being CEO. And the one other thing, I just thought of this. When I tell people about my career journey, if I actually tell them how did I get to the next spot, to the next spot, to the next spot, what's interesting is I think in almost every situation, somebody planted the seed or pulled me in. Like I didn't actually go after it. I got pulled into it. And that's kind of fascinating itself, which I think speaks back to helping and serving others. It just comes right back.
And having that openness and willingness to step in is all the more important.
Absolutely. Have you heard Rich Roll say mood follows action?
Yes.
Right. And so there's science behind that. And I was talking with someone earlier today, a friend of mine, and it's funny that like when you talked about that is like jump in or getting pulled in, do you have to jump in? I tend to lead first with yes. And I'm like, what did I just say yes to? Um, but I do it because I want to put a commitment and then I take the first step. And so the like when people think, I was using this example actually, when people think of me that know me, but maybe not incredibly well, or even if they know me really well, they assume that I'm always obsessed with exercising. Like I'm always doing it, always want to do it. The truth is, I also want to chill on the couch and don't want to exercise, but I commit by just going and then mood follows action. Now I feel better. But if I wait till I feel like exercising, I'm probably not going to start.
Totally can relate to that for sure. And even conversations that I've had with athletes and even those playing professionally,
Right.
what you just said about maybe a misconception that others have of them is that they're always wanting to, work out or always wanting to do these things. And it's like they're just as human as,
Mm-hmm.
the next person, but it's that commitment. It's staying loyal to what it is that you said you're going to do and showing up every time. And that's the difference maker. But it's not easy.
It's not easy. Here you are,
Yeah.
continuing your podcast. Here you are, pushing forward.
I heard something recently that really just stuck. And I would love to share if you don't mind, because I believe that it really serves as a great foundation for our conversation today.
Yeah.
And the quote goes something like this: we all have a voice and we all have something to add. The world does need to hear from you. Everybody's voice needs to be heard in some way and they need to feel heard. Life really is a team game. Okay, and here's my favorite part: the collective impact is better together.
Mm.
Wise words of Kevin Rutherford.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah,
I was like, so you're laughing. I'm going, oh my gosh, there's so much that resonates with me in this.
that is you on your very own podcast.
Oh, I've used a lot of those words. Obviously, I was thinking that. I was truthfully going, oh my gosh, I use a lot of these words. I'm not very original, am I? That's seriously where I was going.
Yes, there's so many directions that we could go in this conversation, but I really want to hang under that umbrella of better together and
Mm-hmm.
how life is a team sport, finding common ground with one another and learning to thrive in a performance culture by combating FOPO.
Let's do it. I like it.
All
It's
right.
so funny what you just did. I just can't resist. I can't resist saying making this comment. If I seriously didn't know that you were quoting me, but yet I obviously was very familiar with everything. That's really funny. So anyway, thank you. And I was going to say, let's break this down into pieces. What you just did. Anyway,
Yeah. And sometimes you got to be inspired by your own inspiration, be inspired by you.
there we go.
All right. So there's so much that I learned playing team sports that's so applicable to life and our relationships and just interconnectedness with one another. And I know that you echo this, and you've said before that you believe that some of the best teammates and employees are the ones who have played team sports. Could you just dive into that a little bit more and kind of make these connections? Because on a team, right, you learn how to win and you learn how to lose and deal with, teammates that are challenging or, who might be
Mm-hmm.
toxic in the locker room, etc. And that's all applicable to life. The question is, what are you going to do about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say this for your listeners. if you haven't played a team sport, that doesn't mean you can't be a great teammate. So
Right.
I'm going to put that caveat out there. Um,
But for those of
no,
you who have, no, psych.
well, and maybe if you haven't, maybe people can appreciate this. Is you said it, like team sports, you learn how to win, meaning what does it take to win? How do you show up? How do you lose? What happens when things get tough? What happens when your teammate is not performing to where you know they can? And the worst is sometimes when it's just they've given up. They're not putting in the effort, which is incredibly frustrating. So you have a choice, right? That's our choice, and what do we need to do? So that's what I love about team sports is you learn how to um, deal and work with your own mindset game and physicality, but also your teammates. And the reality is because you're all in this together, you have to go along with your teammates. There's just no other way to go. And so you have to bring out the best in them or try to find a way to do it. I've said this many times before to different folks out there is when I reflect back on playing competitive team sports, I was very vocal, which is kind of interesting. And it might not be where people think I'm going, meaning I am incredibly vocal in that I am yelling for my teammates, not at them. I cannot remember, and somebody out there listening might go, "Oh, I remember a time," and tell me if that's the case. But truthfully, really can't remember a time where I freaked out on somebody, was mad at them, and yelling at them because I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful at all. And I think when you take that then into the business context or in life, it's also the scenario, right? It just doesn't, it's not helpful. And so if someone's done a mistake, then they usually realize it. So now you go, now what? How do we move forward? So that's where I think team sports applies directly to life and our business careers and what that means. And the other thing worth noting is there are different personality types on a team, right? So not everyone can be the joker, the jester. Like, and so if that's being filled, there's probably a void or something else for someone else on the team. When you think about team, and if you're on teams, like plural teams, which you likely are, because life, business, sports, your role actually might shift depending on what the need is for the team, and you need to fill that gap. And I think that's another thing that you learn, maybe even subliminally. You don't realize it, but you're learning how do I go and how do I play my role to help the overall unit, which also you could argue, and we'll get to FOPO, but it's probably a little bit of um, security and safety because you're trying to create a sense of belonging. So if you're trying to outcompete somebody else in your team, actually may not belong because what if you don't win that battle? So anyway, team sports, big believer in it. I think it helps a ton. And I do think life is a team sport or a team game. And I think that goes on the home front. So, if you have a significant other or partner in life, you've got to figure out how to win together. You have to do it. You can't do it alone and you can't do it opposing into different directions, at least not sustainably. You can't succeed that way. So that's where I was coming from is life is a team game and team sport.
So growing up, we're taught that there is no I in team, but you deconstruct why there actually is an I in team. So I'm going to ask you to tap into a little Canadian French and explain to us why.
I would love to do that. There is a word and it's pronounced équipe. E with an accent aigu, Quipe. That is the French translation for team. And I can tell how I came up with a brand when it comes to that, but if you want to go there, but I'll just pause on parking lot that for now. And if you want to come back to it, we can. But équipe is the French translation for team, and there is an I in team. Here's where I think it comes from my perspective of why to rethink the whole there is no I in team, rethink it, flip it on its head. When it comes to I, there's an identity of the team, right? So who are we? What does it take to be on this team? And by the way, you can say this at work, you can say this at home, you can say this in sports. I was recently speaking to a team over at a little Seattle company called Amazon recently, and I said that to them. What's the identity of this team that I was speaking to? Who are we? What does it take? What are the behaviors? What does it mean to be on this team? And the reason why I say that is I believe there's a team chemistry, which we hear a lot in sports, but I actually think there's a team chemistry in life and in business. And so to get to the team chemistry and this identity of like, who are we? There's three different eyes that I think of. One is the individual. Two is this interdependence or interconnected, either way. Three is about the implementation, which is our behaviors of how it all manifests itself. And I'll break it down just real quickly if I could. So the individual in this case is accountability of ourselves. What do we need to do to be part of the team, to create the team identity? Also accountability to each other. There's mattering, feeling significant, or as said, even more importantly, helping others feel significant. And then there's this purpose, right? This like the purpose of like connecting to what you're doing. So if you're doing at work activity for activity's sake and you don't actually know what it's connecting to, somebody's missing the boat here. We got to connect it to the overall priority mission. The second one on interdependence or interconnectedness, that one is the social component. And think of that one as trust leads to this sense of belonging together, a bonding that happens. And then that's the relationships. And so culture is basically all these relationships interconnected together. And then the third one, when I talk about the implementation, so behaviors, think of that as there's values that we say, what are your values? And if you look at a business, like, what are your values? It's like, oh, I have to look at the wall, what it is. Honestly, you shouldn't even have to do that because the behaviors that we do should be manifested from the values. The values actually mean nothing unless your behaviors are consistent with it. Anyway, so that chemistry, the reaction of the three to me develops this identity of the team. That's kind of the framework that I go at when it comes to team culture and team chemistry.
I love how you say like it starts with you, it starts with me. It's thinking about it that way and putting yourself into the equation because each and every one of us have a responsibility to the team and
Yep.
ultimately bringing out the best in one another and building each other up.
Here's a thought. So have you read Wolfpack by Abby Wambach?
I have not.
It's a wonderful little book on leadership, actually. And in fact, Brene Brown, I think, named it one of her favorite books. So to give you kind of a sense of credibility from what Abby wrote,
Love Brene.
she's so great. And in the book, what really struck me was she tells a story of how her daughter said, Mom, why do you point after you score a goal? And she's pointing out. And so for context, for anyone listening out there, Abby Wambach at the time of her retirement had scored more goals than any other professional soccer player or football, if we're talking to Europeans, um, in on the planet. And her answer back to that one is you're pointing back at your teammates because it's about them, which I might have scored, but it's about you. Thank you for setting me up. And this is about us. And that's why she points at them. The reason I bring up that story is people say that they're looking to be noticed, which is understandable, right? Notice me, notice me. And when I mentioned earlier, it's actually about noticing others. Here's why. It's the Abby Wambach theory. If you start noticing others and you're pointing at them, truly noticing them, like, Ashley, I don't just see you and notice you, like, I see you. I feel where you're coming from right now. And if I do that and affirm it with specifics, right, that creates a ecosystem and culture where others do it. And so what Abby's doing, I think, actually comes back to culture when I'm pointing at you saying, yes, nice job, be specific, never make it up. Here we go. It comes back to you and you will feel noticed. So those craving, I need to feel noticed. The way to do it is to notice others. I know it's not a direct line. I get it. It's a little frustrating, but it will come back.
Yeah, that's really good. And it makes me think about the types of teammates that stand out to me. And those are always the ones that are the ones that have the spotlight the most, that are always giving the credit back to the team. And I know sometimes that is like a cliche thing to do, but it's not just when the cameras are on. It's the same when we're in the gym and when we're practicing late, or we're showing up at 6 a.m. when we're in the weight room or something like that. It's those type of teammates that are really bringing you up and really rallying around you, you know?
I love what you just said. It's not just when the camera's on, it's not just when the video's on, it's what happens otherwise. And here's the thing, we're giving sports references. We can think about our career journey in the business world and we can go, I know that person that's behind the scenes where they're saying, Ashley, I just want to say thank you for this. You feel noticed. Here's why. They get specific, right? It's not a generic statement. Good job. But that's fine. But that doesn't actually make you feel noticed. What makes you feel noticed going, hey, I want to say good job. You just did this podcast interview, and the way you articulated your questions and brought it out in their guests, like this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like that's getting specific. You're like, oh my God, that hit me, like in a good way. It's the equivalent of being in the weight room.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I think too, calling people by their name is something that I think is it's very important to me, because it's the one thing that we own. We're much more than our names, right? But when we're communicating with one another, they're not just anybody. That's important. There's really a difference. It's making me think a lot about that.
Me too. As you're talking, it's making me go, I need to get better at calling out people's names more often. I'm very good at it on teams that I'm on. I'm not necessarily good at it with people that I'm new to meeting, which says I'm probably not connecting deep enough on noticing, and I need to do that. I that was really helpful actually. I'm like, I need to do that better. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Having these conversations, there's so much that we're learning together. I mean, you and I just had this conversation too about podcasting. It's like, I don't know, what am I doing, but it's like, it's doing it and helping one another and really
Yeah,
seeing each other in the process and lifting each other up. It helps. It makes a huge difference. Because if you
massive.
see me and you're like, no, I see what you're doing, keep going. I'm like, really? It
You
makes a
should
huge
definitely
difference.
keep going. I listened to a couple of your podcasts. I think you have a great talent. I might be digressing here, but you have a
I,
great talent.
I
Seriously, you're
appreciate
really good.
I appreciate you. So I want to transition here. We obviously talked about teams and building each other up and everything, but let's talk about how we can find common grounds with teammates who maybe we don't want to find common ground with, or we don't think it's possible. Let's talk about that and what it means to lean in with a yes and mentality.
I love that. Earlier this year in May, I was riding my bike in your now home state of Florida, from Key West over to the Gulf side, then across to the Atlantic side up to Jacksonville. It was 700 miles roughly in 6 days with a bunch of really great athletes. And what's interesting for this story that might surprise people is, well, one being one of two Canadians as riders. There was another Canadian as well that was on our support team. But everyone else was American and wearing their stars and stripes with pride, as I was too, by the way, wearing stars and stripes. That was our kit. And what I started to learn and realize was this guy that came from the Social Republic of Canada is probably a lot more left leaning than everyone else in the ride. And if they're listening to this, they're like, all of them might not know this, by the way. They know I'm Canadian, but they don't realize what I'm saying. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But truth is, I got to know these people really well, each day after doing more than a century ride. Like imagine the bonding that you're getting because everyone has to pull from the front and then you rotate in the peloton. It doesn't actually matter if you're a left leaning person or a right leaning person politically. It doesn't matter. We're all on this bike ride together. It'll come back to your question, by the way, I promise.
So good.
Um, and so we're riding along, and by day four, that evening at the end of a ride, we were in a van getting transported to, a hotel where we were staying. And I got in some really good conversations, with some of the people at the back of the van. And I self-declared, I'm like, what's going on? And I'll just be totally blunt. I literally said, can you guys help me understand what is about Trump that you like? Because I just don't get it. So I made myself vulnerable, but I wouldn't have done that 2, 3 days before. I think I had to build trust with them first so that they knew who I was as a human. Not that that was ever my objective. It just wasn't like having conversation. I actually love to have deep conversations. I love to have deep conversations on politics. I don't care. Like I would want to learn. I'm not trying to convince you. Nonetheless, they both thanked me. There was two of them actually. There was a third person that joined in toward the latter in the conversation. They all thanked me for the conversation, all of them, and they all acknowledged that they have very different views from me, and it was really cool. And I think what the learning is here is we have more in common than we think. So you have to break it down, and you have to ask questions and seek truly to understand, which is a Stephen Coveyism, the OG, I think, of leadership. He's no longer with us on this earth anymore, but he would talk about seek first to understand, then to be understood. And he would ask questions and ask questions and ask questions. And that's the whole thing is seek to understand, then to be understood. And we went in it with, I think, very much mentality. And what I found was all of us, honestly, we barely talked about Trump, to be honest. And because I don't actually think that was the most relevant part. It was more about, well, why? And then you dig in, it's actually, well, here's what I believe, and that I believe that this individual's doing. Whether I agreed with that doesn't matter. What mattered was I understood now what was important to them and why, and then why that approach meant something. And so I think for teams, you've got to find common ground as to what your goal. There's two different opposing views. Let's come back to what do we want? And then let's debate and truly challenge ourselves to say, is there better information somewhere else that says maybe I should evolve? And I bet you either way you lean, you will start to shift if you truly listen. I do want to say one other thing. I think this is an interesting one. This is where I think I got them to really engage in the conversation. We were wearing stars and stripes, red, white, and blue. And I said to them, here's the thing, team. It's not team blue, use Democrats. It's not team red. By the way, I'm Canadian. I can't vote if anyone's getting mad at me. It's not team red Republicans. It's team red, white, and blue. So we have to find a way to work together. That's a very macro scale. I do think it applies in business. Sales and marketing teams have tension all the time at every company I've been at. Oddly enough, I grew up before CEO as a marketer. I got along really well with salespeople. Why? Because I was trying to serve them to help them. What is it you need? What does that look like? And then I would try to help them understand why we're doing what we're doing and how it will help them or not. And let's have the debate. Again, meet people where they are, find common ground. We are actually all driving to the same objective. Red, white, and blue. We all want to be healthy, safe, right? We all want to progress. We want the best for people around. Like we all want that. So let's stop, pause, think, listen, and speak from there. Anyway, that was long-winded.
So good. I have so much that I could respond to because I think everything that you said is so important and worthy of considering. It should challenge our thinking. There's so much nuance. There's so much gray area because there's so
100%.
much that we have to learn.
Yes.
And when we actually sit down with one another without knowing a single thing, we can find places of connection that are totally stripped of views on this, beliefs on that, of anything. And we can, like your experience, with the team where like you have one mission, one goal together, and you're going to do it despite what your political views are. And I think that's the power is when we're up close to people and we actually have conversations and we ask better questions and give better responses to the questions that we're being asked.
Yep.
That can just blow everything up. And you're like, whoa, I never thought about it like that. But it makes sense how you came to the conclusion that you did based on X, Y, and Z, based on your experiences, based on your upbringing, based on your environment, based on the people. All of these things matter and influence the way that we think and perceive the world and people.
So true.
It all matters.
And I like the word that you used of consider, right? Consideration. I really think the whole seek to understand, I didn't think of it from the word that you used of consideration, but I think that's a really powerful one because that's what you need to go in almost to the conversation. And we don't have to use something even as divisive right now as politics. just any conversation go, I need to go in and consider what's going on as to why they're thinking the way they're thinking on this tactical play on the sales team or the finance team or the operations team. It feels so not logical to me, but clearly they must have some logic. So I better ask questions to consider where are they coming from. And so again, we can use politics as one, but at the end of the day, I think it actually applies to life. Life is a team game. Back to that, and you have difference of opinions, different personalities on a team.
Something that I've had to learn to do, and I'm continuing to learn it, is giving myself permission to change my mind. Like
Oh yeah.
to allow myself to actually think differently about something now. Maybe I thought one way about something last year, and now I feel a little bit different about it. Or maybe I thought a certain way about something for the last 5 or 6 years, or something that was just kind of like ingrained. But through a conversation with somebody else, through somebody's story, now it's challenging me to think a little bit differently about it. And I think what that does is it allows us to step outside of the boxes that we actually put ourselves in. As much as we put other people in boxes and attach labels, we're actually breaking that down whenever we give ourselves the permission to change our mind on something.
Do you have an example of where your mind changed?
You're
Role reversal here.
gonna put me on the spot like that.
Here, I'll give you one. Although I don't know if my mind's completely changed, but the process is what you described. So I eat a plant-based diet, otherwise known as vegan, because every Canadian wants to know they're Canadian and every vegan wants to know they're vegan. So I got that out. Here's the thing. I've had many conversations with friends of mine and family for that matter. Most are not vegan. And my going in position is this is a better way for health, for you, for the planet, and for animals. Well, clearly it's better for the animal. That's pretty hard to debate. But all that aside, having conversation, things like regenerative agriculture, there's another approach there of how that could be good for the planet. But being open to going, consider, back to your word, of what else could be there that I don't know. Or, well, actually, there's challenges with plant-based diet when it comes to getting all the nutrients you want. That's interesting. Let me tell you the counterpoint to that I've heard. Is that not true? And then it's like, oh, by the way, I still eat a plant-based diet. However, I think it's really hard to prove that a plant-based diet is the only way to eat that's better for your health for longevity. I think it's really hard to prove that. I'm not saying that it's bad for you. I'm just saying there's fair to push back in the argument. Back to your point, my going in position, like think of like vegans are like, we're holding strong. We're not budging on this thing. Like I am not budging. I'm going to convince you. And I love the intention, but going in with an open mind to say, well, what don't I know? Again, it doesn't mean you have to change, or maybe you will. If you really listen, you're like, oh, all right, give me that steak. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I really do think that is an example that I personally experience and I still experience. And I ask inquisitively when the conversation opens up. So yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. You don't have to have an example, but it's one that many people can probably appreciate as, plant-based eaters that has grown so much over the last 10, 20 years.
That's a great example. And I appreciate you having my back and jumping in to respond to that, to your own question. I mean, I think something that right now I'm thinking about, especially going through this rehab process with my shoulder and being an athlete my whole life. After I stopped playing basketball, I got into long distance running and I love it. And I love it still. But I was into this mentality of like, I have something to prove still. And I had that mindset the whole time that I was doing different events and kind of running and I need to do this and I need to beat this time. And I shifted my mindset a bit on that, running with my cousin who had never done any events before ever. And I remember doing a first half marathon with her. It was down here in Florida. The watch was off and I was in it for the joy and the experience of it with her. And it was the hands down best event that I've ever participated in because I took all that pressure off. I went through this whole process of like how I'm really thinking about running and events and fitness and achievement, allowing myself to see goals differently. I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I stepped into this podcast to literally surrender the outcome. So like, I don't know how this is going to go or where it's going to go, but I'm going to commit to showing up to this space. And if I do that, then that's a win and we'll see what happens. And
Yeah.
so I think it's shifted how I've just viewed goals and how I then view myself. And maybe this is a bit of a more personal example versus a specific topic or anything that would be more debatable amongst others, but it's unlocking your own mind in a way.
Mm-hmm. It's growth mindset. I think it's a wonderful example.
Yeah.
That's what that is. It's growth mindset. We're going to touch on this one in a bit, I think, on FOPO.
Oh yeah, we're
Um,
going there.
and one of the things that comes out from Dr. Michael Gervais, who came up with the concept. And Dr. Michael Gervais talks about the first rule of mastery. This is the whole premise of the book. And he's so smart, this guy. And he talks about you want to build this authenticity from the inside out. And so if you think about your transition that you just described, as you were probably more from the outside in when it came to times, performance on the course, like where did I rank? By the way, guilty. I'm with you. Totally have done it. Probably still doing it. But and that's okay. Like if it drives you, that's okay. I'm not
Totally.
saying don't do that. But ultimately you need to have this authenticity and this inner strength. So it comes from the inside out. And that's where it leads to the FOPO conversation. But anyway, as I was listening to it, made me think of listening to Dr. Michael Gervais. I've met him a couple times, and he's exactly who you would think. He's super kind and nice and brilliant mind, and knows how to get stuff out of your brain that you never thought you were going to talk about.
Totally. So this whole concept of FOPO, I've actually never heard of before until you recently mentioned it. It's so relevant and so real. So could you just explain what this is all about and why each and every one of us have too much to give to the world to allow FOPO to hold us back?
That's a good summary right there. Right there. Let that one stick with everyone. FOPO is an acronym that Michael came up with, and it stands for Fear of People's Opinions. I have not read the book yet, so in full disclosure, I've listened to Dr. Gervais talk about this one on several podcasts leading up to the release, and even recently. I do really want to get the book, so I think it sounds really powerful. Here's the thing. Here's a couple takeaways. Most people are probably like, I don't care about other people's opinions. I'm just going to say, without swearing, BS on that's not likely the case. Very few people don't really care about someone else's opinion. And so what I've learned from him, Michael, in this case, is it's actually biological of why you fear people's opinions. Because if you go back to early civilization, it was it was actually a survival technique. Because if you didn't fear of other people's opinions, meaning I fit in and I belong, you're dead. Like you're done. Like they're killing you. You're out. You're out of the tribe. So again, it's biological. It's in who we are. So you almost have to fight it for whatever it's worth. So back to your point, we should fight it because it is also holding us back. It is preventing us from starting that podcast. It is preventing us from doing different things because we're like, well, how will this be perceived? What does this mean? I have this imposter syndrome every day, every day. I have it all the time. And I'm going, should I be talking about this? Should Ashley really be interviewing me? But I'm here and I show up and I'm going to just say what I feel and think in a respectful way that hopefully helps me, helps you, and helps others. And it may not. That's okay. And I'm such a serial learner that I feel like I'm getting a lot of reassurance without people knowing they're talking to me, but listening to other podcasts where they're going, and if you feel imposter syndrome, that's normal. And then they tell me the science behind it. I'm like, okay, thank goodness. Because I feel it. I feel it. And I think we all feel it to a certain extent. I think the key is just don't let it stop you. Don't let it stop you. If I could just say one other thing is there's also fear of other opinions that can make you also move forward. And sometimes it could really have a negative effect on you. And so where I'm going is I'm thinking about specifically around things like social media, where everyone's life looks perfect. I'm not suggesting you should go post the bad days of your life because who wants to see that, right? What I am saying is whether you want to portray a perfect life or not, I don't mean you specifically, Ashley, but I mean all of us, just to be clear. if you're looking at someone else's life, recognize that that's shining a spotlight on what's likely working or something they're super stoked or proud of. And don't try to compete with that. So that's again not coming from the inside out. And so this is where, even though you are taking action, you're probably putting a standard that's really not fair on yourself. And then you're actually going to feel worse. And so I think this is where social media has really, really hurt people, in this case, women in particular, because my understanding is women fear most, if we were to distill down to one thing, not being perfect. Guys won't understand that when I talk to women, and I say that because I heard it somewhere else and I don't remember where, but I get nods like you are, Ashley. I get nods. Guys fear being weak. And weak doesn't necessarily mean physical. It could mean I'm not the breadwinner. It could be different things. I'm not dateable. Someone doesn't want to, like, in the rate of, as an example of, males taking their life at such an early age, right? It's horrendous. It's horrible. It's happening actually with both young men and women, but it's happening at a much faster rate than men, and it was already a higher percentage. So we need to rethink this. So here's where I'm going. FOPO, don't let it stop you. Two, don't let fear of people's opinions make you do dysfunctional things that are standards that aren't realistic. Make it from, again, back from the inside out, and make it about you. But show up though, and take the step. Do that thing. Take that trip. Call that person. Tell your mom you love her. I don't like whatever that is. Like, do it. Do it, do it, do it.
It's really powerful. And like you just said with Dr. Gervais, it's so funny because he actually re-released a conversation with Brene Brown on this topic like 3 weeks ago. And I wanted to pull a quote out that Brene said that I think just ties in so perfectly in to everything that you just said. And she says, caring about what everyone thinks and not caring about what anyone thinks are both super problematic. When you care about what everyone thinks, you lose the willingness to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. When you stop caring about what anyone thinks at all, you lose your capacity for connection because we're hardwired to care about what people think. So our job becomes to get specific about whose opinions matter.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's really good. Because when we're clear on that and we have people around us, there are people who really do care and are encouraging you to step into that thing, to try that thing. I know there's people in my life that without them to be like, you got this, you can do this. I needed that to take that step. Why don't I care more about that than what are they going to say over there? Meanwhile, I have somebody right here in my corner who's like, I really care about you. I see you. I love you. You got this. Go for it.
Well, yeah, mind blowing. So I actually think what Brene, her quote, was an incredible articulation of it. What your build on it, I think, just made her quote even more powerful. Like, your build, like, I'm nodding and I'm resonating. I'm literally thinking through in my head, going, I'm doing that too. And if I'm doing it, seriously, your listeners, if they're really listening and not completely multitasking, and if you're multitasking right now, go rewind that about a minute and a half back and listen to Ashley again. Because why are we not listening to those that are closest? Just like, we're listening, but are we really noticing and affirming and taking it in? Like, probably not. But we are worried about what someone else is thinking. I could not agree with you more. And I know I'm guilty of that. I have so much love and support around me and people encouraging me. And I know it. And I wonder if I need to appreciate it more and act on it more and go with that. And don't worry about the other ones, to Brene's point. Like, what, I don't even know who you are out there that you think I shouldn't be hosting a podcast as well. I don't even know who you are. What am I worrying about? Maybe I know who you are and I haven't talked to you in like 8 years. I don't know. I really, really, really appreciate what you just said. And you don't realize it, I don't think, but so someone that's caring right now with you, for you, is you just said something that was really powerful that I think took Brene's quote to a whole different level. Like, you really, like, that really hit home. Super powerful. Thank you.
Thank you for this conversation. I know I'm learning so much just by us chatting back and forth, and it's so valuable. And gosh, I'm really, really grateful. So there's so much I'm thinking of right now that I'm kind of wrapping
Keep
this
going.
up. Okay. Well, this is the Endurance Diary. So I have one final question for you for the sake of this episode. What inspires you to keep going and not tap out when things get hard?
My first answer that I my first answer was like, I'm so used to, I think, being on stage that I was going to tell you what my stage answer was because I think it's true. But then I'm like, if I was really honest with myself, I'll give you that one too. My first answer was actually possibilities. Everything comes down to possibility, which I truly believe. That's where the Chief Eternal Optimist title comes from. And possibilities doesn't mean everything's great. It just means I can see there's something out there that we can go get. You just got to keep going. You got to adjust accordingly. I do believe that. That said, in the here and now, what really drives me, like at any point when things get tough, it's fear of failure, which isn't the answer I should be saying as the Chief Eternal Optimist. But that's the genuine emotion. Like, so when you ask that question, I'm going, possibilities. I know what my answer is. Let me explain what possibilities is all about. And let me give you my stage presence. And then I'm going, don't do that. And so I do mean everything when I said on possibilities. But the truth is, of the here and now, as I'm saying that, I'm like, come on, Kevin, fear of failure actually drives me a lot of times as well. Like a lot.
So, I have a follow up question on that.
Uh-oh. Give it to me.
How do you define failure?
Uh, Probably not coming from the inside. As I said, and I just coached, saying, it needs to come from the inside out. It's probably failure of how it's perceived, and I didn't hit the goal, which
What if the goal is
that's
not the goal?
exactly, yes. So meaning that's what I should be doing. Um, I'm answering it. I don't know if you're picking up on this, but I am critiquing myself real time as I'm answering, going, this is not a good answer, but it's the truthful answer. And that shows lots of room for growth. I think of it as this is what I set out to do, and that's what I must accomplish. I must deliver. I must make it happen. I like what you just said is what if the goal is actually not the goal? And that's why I said exactly, because meaning you're right. And thank you, coach. I appreciate that because I
That
needed that. I needed it. I
didn't
needed it.
come from me. That came from Colette, a very important person in my life. Who's
Mm,
coached me in a lot of ways and helped shift my way of thinking. Because to your point, what you said, I so appreciate just your very real human response to that question and saying fear of failure, because I think that is something that is in all of us in some ways, right? And we may call it something different, but we all have these
mhm,
innate fears where we set out to do something, we want to get it right, we don't want to fall on our face.
mhm.
But I think there's also power in shifting. And then it goes back to the possibilities that are in the process
Yep.
that may be greater than the result of whatever we're going after in the first place.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it I'm not an expert here, might say that fear of failure might not be a bad thing as a catalyst to drive you, as long as you can quickly shift gears. So, in the spirit of, vulnerability on trying something new, I recently, started Culture First Leadership, and part of that is doing keynote speaking. The keynote speaking actually was not new for me, fortunately. What was new was it was keynote speaking as Kevin with this company who I'm supposed to be the subject matter expert around culture, as opposed to Kevin, the CEO of Noon Hydration, who is passionate and lives culture. Like there's a big difference. And so the imposter syndrome, the whole piece there, and when what drove me and got it going, and doing my first talk at Amazon, and starting to line up other ones. Fortunately for me, that's happening. So I'm lucky there. But stepping out and doing it, it was like I got to nail this thing. I will say though, for whatever it's worth, this happens when I was trying to do a triathlon and couldn't swim and then learn how to do that one and just started going. If I go to run a marathon or a half marathon, I've got butterflies before every race. And if I'm going to go on stage to speak to people, I've got butterflies, I've got self doubts. But the moment I take the step forward back to mood follows action, for me, something happens where all of a sudden that like it goes away. And I'm in this moment with you on the stage. I'm in this moment, well, really with me and other people swimming and piling over top of me and freaking me out. But yeah, it's maybe the fear is a good thing to some extent, as long as it doesn't take over.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm always learning from you and always, inspired by you, and just truly grateful to have you in my corner. And for those listening in, they can now hear from you on the CEO podcast, the Chief Eternal Optimist podcast. I will link it in the show notes here, and they can connect with you on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter.
That's right. At @clean_lantern, LinkedIn, my first and last name, of course, Kevin Rutherford. And yeah, just grateful for anyone tuning in, and DM me, say hi.
I really appreciate you. There's so much to just digest and process, and a lot to take away. So
super fun. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.